It happened in seconds, so fast that even those who later glimpsed the leaked footage described it as almost impossible to process in real time. One moment, King Harris exuded his usual digital bravado, laughing in videos, posting relentlessly, flexing his independence and untouchable aura as if the universe had bent itself to accommodate his whims. He moved through the world like a young king who had inherited more than fame. He believed he had inherited immunity from consequence. Every clip, every post, every viral reaction reinforced the illusion that he was untouchable, a force entirely of his own making. And then, in an instant, that illusion shattered. The footage captured a man who was no longer performing for an audience. King was whispering into his phone, voice trembling and raw, stripped of every ounce of his performative energy. "Bro, please call me back, somebody's in here, I need help now," he stammered, barely above a whisper. The terror in his tone was bone-deep, primal, not performative, not exaggerated for views, but utterly genuine. The lights in his house flickered erratically, as though the very electricity sensed the intrusion. Alarms glitched, stuttered, and failed to deliver the full warning they were designed for. Behind him, subtle sounds shifted in the shadows, footsteps that were too close, too deliberate, and too quiet to ignore. King Harris, son of T.I., the young man who had built his brand on chaos and fearlessness, was reduced to pacing through his own home, pleading for someone, anyone, to intervene. When the footage leaked, the internet erupted. People analyzed every frame, every trembling breath, every glance. There was no room for interpretation. This was King chasing clout or trolling online. He was terrified. And as details began to surface, the cause of that fear crystallized. This was no random burglary, no childish prank. It was a calculated message, a methodical warning from individuals allegedly connected to 50 Cent's circle. These were not people to joke with, not people who tolerated disrespect. They operated on a different code, one where perceived slights demanded response, and bluffing was never an option. What they left behind was deliberate, precise, and designed to unnerve. Insiders whispered that the intruders hadn't merely entered the house. They had placed a symbolic object as a stark warning. King reportedly hasn't slept properly since that night, haunted by the understanding that his sanctuary, his fortress, could be breached so effortlessly. Even more unsettling, the manner of their entry suggested inside access, a betrayal by someone within his inner circle. It was not just a physical intrusion, it was an emotional one, a violation that cut far deeper than any forced entry ever could. Tensions had been simmering long before that night. Layer by layer, warning by warning, King had cultivated an image of fearless unpredictability. To fans, it looked like empowerment, viral posts, relentless content, fearless clapbacks. To critics, it was recklessness. But for older industry figures with real street credibility, it was a kid stepping into territories he didn't understand. King had grown up insulated by fame, surrounded by music studios, reality cameras, security details, and luxury. Danger had always felt distant, theatrical, a concept that existed for entertainment. Beef played out online where words were weapons, but rarely translated into real-world consequences. Attention was currency, and he spent it freely. Yet the people he was provoking didn't share that worldview. In their world, disrespect carried weight. Public slights didn't disappear with a deleted post. Grudges were cataloged, remembered, and acted upon. The friction didn't appear overnight. It started subtly. Offhand comments in interviews, subliminal jabs at washed older rappers, clips where King dismissed industry veterans as outdated. Casual observers laughed it off, interpreting it as youthful energy. But in certain circles, those moments were noted, replayed, and never forgot. Street-connected individuals don't shrug off slights. They record them, measure them, and wait. The early warnings were quiet but unmistakable. An unfamiliar car lingered outside his home for hours. Anonymous messages urged caution. A stranger at a gas station whispered, "Careful who you talk about, little bro." King ignored them, convinced that projecting fearlessness made him stronger. He didn't realize that his father's fame offered protection only up to a certain threshold. Beyond it, words and actions carried consequences that no celebrity status could erase. His vulnerability wasn't merely in his words, it was in the people around him. As he projected independence and a grown man persona, his entourage proved ill-equipped for the risks he invited. Some hung around for clout, others for perks, proximity to fame, or perceived protection. Loyalty was questionable, readiness was non-existent. And one person, Saman, with heavy debts and dangerous connections, saw an opportunity. Desperation had intersected with betrayal, and the crack in King's armor widened unnoticed. King kept pushing. He laughed off threats, posted live clips, boasted he was untouchable. A particular clip went viral, his words looping endlessly. "I don't fear nobody. Y'all not touching me." Unfortunately, that clip circulated in the wrong hands in the wrong group chats. To some, it was a direct challenge, a provocation demanding action. The response was quiet, methodical, and terrifying in its restraint. There was no loud confrontation, no social media backlash. That's what made it effective: patient, strategic, premeditated. Someone had been tracking his routines for weeks, when he was home alone, when plans shifted, when security was least vigilant. Only a handful of people knew about the change in his schedule that night, and one of them had shared it. Leading up to the incident, King appeared relaxed. He posted casually, joked with fans, projected nonchalance. But as night fell, subtle anomalies emerged. Wi-Fi dropped without reason, motion lights activated unexpectedly, a back door felt slightly off when checked. At the time, he dismissed them as glitches. In hindsight, they were probes, tests to measure alertness and confirm isolation. Then came the first sound, a soft, unnatural creak from the rear of the house. King tried to rationalize it: air conditioning, the dog, nothing. A second sound followed, closer, more deliberate. His conversation froze mid-sentence. "Yo, wait, somebody's in here." Confusion gave way to fear as he moved cautiously toward the kitchen, phone held like a shield, heartbeat pounding like war drums. Lights buzzed overhead, shadows shifted in peripheral vision. Panic set in fully. He whispered pleas for help, pacing the halls that once felt safe. The footage captured a rare vulnerability, a young man whose digital armor had finally failed, confronted by reality's weight. What the public didn't see immediately was the deeper sting. The first person King called for help wasn't family or security, it was someone tied to betrayal. Weeks earlier, quiet deals had been struck behind his back, information traded, access granted, a debt forgiven in exchange for leverage. The goal wasn't violence, not yet. The aim was fear, humiliation, a lesson in consequences. The object left on the living room table wasn't random. It was precise, deliberate, a warning that echoed louder than any words could. The lesson wasn't over. A second round would follow if the message wasn't received and internalized. Fragments of the full truth emerged slowly. The break-in was surface level. The real devastation lay in the betrayal that made it possible. Someone within his trusted circle, someone smiling to his face, had sold him out. King had trusted, confided, perhaps even protected this individual, oblivious to their prioritization of self-preservation over loyalty. The incident forced a reckoning. King's online persona, once a shield, had become a target. The beef that started online had bled into reality. The fear lingered, not just from the intrusion but from the intimate betrayal that enabled it. The panic crescendoed in one raw, unfiltered plea. "Bro, call me, I ain't playing." His voice cracked, stripped of every veneer of bravado. This was no longer the King Harris who taunted online, who flexed for cameras, who laughed at beef. This was a young man confronting terror, whispering into the darkness of his own home, realizing the world didn't operate on followers or likes. Audio from the incident spread rapidly, raced through group chats, fan pages, comment sections, igniting obsession. People replayed it endlessly, dissecting every tremble, pause, and repetition. They saw pacing shadows, flickering lights, muffled background noises. What they couldn't see, the real terror, was the betrayal that made the entire scenario possible. Security logs told a colder story. The intruders hadn't forced entry. No prime marks, no broken frames. The door had simply been left unlocked. King, meticulous about security, was obsessive. He bragged about it constantly, double-checked locks, state-of-the-art alarms, cameras, motion sensors. How had that door been left open? Investigators traced the anomaly. Earlier that afternoon, the door had been momentarily opened, not fully, just enough to disengage the latch and prevent it from locking later. The camera captured a hooded figure moving with confidence, like someone who belonged. No face visible, but familiarity radiated from their movement. King first assumed it was his friend Dree who had visited earlier, but side-by-side comparisons revealed otherwise. "That's not Dree," he admitted. "Dree's taller." Confusion turned to dread. Who else had that level of access? The answer was a cousin, distant, with a shady history, chronic financial troubles, debts in dangerous circles. King had distanced himself, warned repeatedly about this family member, but blood ties lingered. The cousin hadn't acted alone. Driveway footage hours earlier revealed a tinted car arrival. The driver matched descriptions of affiliates tied to 50 Cent, known for efficiency, discretion, and handling business without loose ends. This was no impulsive act. It was a transaction, the cousin's debts exchanged for access to King's home. No need for violence, just fear, humiliation, and a lesson in boundaries. King had disrespected publicly, in a world where words didn't disappear with a delete button. King knew none of this at the moment. All he registered was the violation, the confidence of intruders, the certainty they knew where to go. When he reached the living room, the object on the table, a single bullet beside a printed screenshot of one of his reckless posts, hit like a gut punch. The message was unmistakable, personal, targeted, unfinished. "How they get in, how they know I'm home," he whispered, voice breaking. The betrayal's intimacy was suffocating. Hours later, King confided in his father, expecting rage or panic. T.I.'s response was eerily calm. "I knew it was coming." He explained that he'd sensed decay in King's circle for months, leaks, shady affiliations, opportunists. He had warned King repeatedly, "The people around you aren't all friends." But King, desperate to prove independence, dismissed every red flag. The cousin unlocking the door was only part of it. Another layer existed, a tech-savvy insider who knew the home systems inside out. They disabled Wi-Fi glitches masking the approach, muted cameras at precise moments, and held passwords, codes, and intimate knowledge of King's routines. The breach wasn't just physical, it was engineered from within. By the time the night ended, King realized he hadn't just been scared, he had been weaponized. His pride, his online persona, his casual disrespect had been turned against him with lethal precision. Fear, betrayal, and surveillance had become a crucible, forging lessons that would linger far longer than any viral clip or social media scandal. King Harris, the boy who had believed fame was armor, learned that night the truth of real-world consequence. And as the clip circulated, the story was no longer entertainment. It was a warning, a chilling example. In the shadowy intersection of fame, influence, and street-connected power, no online post could exist without repercussions. The person was Switch, a crew member who had gradually inserted himself into King Harris's life, quietly, meticulously. At first, he seemed helpful, loyal even. He ran errands, fixed minor technical glitches, reset networks, and knew the home's camera placements better than anyone on official security. He was always present during the highs, the viral moments, and the chaotic lows. To King, Switch was support, a steady hand in a life defined by flashes of fame and digital storms. To the intruders, however, he was the key, the silent architect who turned trust into vulnerability. Digital logs painted an unassailable picture. 2 hours before the intrusion, the home security system was manually disabled from inside the network, an action requiring the Wi-Fi password. Only King and Switch possessed it. Keycard activity placed Switch at a window near the cousin's entry point, perfectly synchronized. The coordination was seamless, precise. When King was confronted with the evidence, timestamps, logs, camera blackouts aligned with Switch's movements, he recoiled. Switch wouldn't do that. "Y'all got it wrong," he stammered, disbelief bleeding into panic, but the proof was ironclad. Switch's phone had been powered off during the entire incident. No calls, no location pings. In moments of danger, phones aren't accidentally turned off. The betrayal had been chosen, deliberate. It cut deepest because it was earned trust that had been weaponized. Switch hadn't been forced, he had chosen. Debt, promises of protection, opportunism, motives mattered less than the result. King's sanctuary had been breached from within, and the realization shattered every illusion of security. Investigators continued digging, uncovering further layers. After King left with a reinforced security detail, a second message appeared, taped beneath his bedroom dresser. A folded note bore a single chilling line. "He's closer than you think." Not the cousin, not Switch. A third person. Someone still embedded in King's circle, feeding information, pretending loyalty while knowing every habit, every routine, every vulnerability. T.I. reportedly snatched the note immediately, his calm but commanding presence filling the room. The detective explained plainly. The precision, the timing, the placement of warnings, it all suggested inside knowledge. Someone had been in King's room, someone he trusted, someone he'd let close. As the internet caught wind, fans and self-appointed detectives went to work. Posts, tags, and timestamps were combed. Who had been in the house recently? Who had worn King's chains, shared his space, or posted from his environment? Speculation exploded online. Then came the doorbell audio from across the street. Grainy, distant, but distinct. One voice asked, "You sure the kid's alone?" The reply, "Yeah, his own people confirmed it. He's soft tonight." Plural, his own people. The net widened. King was surrounded by betrayal by those he trusted implicitly. Later, an anonymous message arrived on King's phone. A photo, Switch and the cousin in a car with a third man. King recognized him instantly. Milo, the one he had publicly defended, the one he had argued with his father about, the one he had trusted above almost anyone. "Bro, I got you. You safe with me," Milo had often said. Always the reassurance, always the loyalty act. But this was a different Milo entirely. The timestamp, 1 hour before the break-in. Milo wasn't peripheral, he was central. He coordinated schedules, confirmed isolation, signaled when to move. He told Switch which cameras to disable. He directed the cousin which door to unlock. He was the architect, turning King's trusted circle into a trap. King dropped his phone. The room seemed to spin, breathing caught in his chest. His closest confidant had betrayed him, not for clout, not for money alone, perhaps for deeper grudges or revenge hidden beneath a mask of friendship. Whatever the motive, the betrayal was absolute. The aftermath was surreal. The house looked unchanged, furniture, lights, personal items, but nothing felt safe. Shadows morphed into potential threats. Every noise triggered panic. Sleep became a ritual of checking locks, counting entrances, monitoring security feeds obsessively. The terror wasn't just from the intrusion. It was the knowledge that familiar faces could turn lethal. T.I. moved decisively but quietly. Security was tight, the inner circle audited, potential liabilities cut off without spectacle. He didn't gloat at being right. He mourned that his son had to learn the brutal lesson firsthand. King's online persona shifted subtly. The reckless flexing and viral bravado didn't vanish entirely, but cracks were visible. Caution tempered confidence. This was no random act of violence or petty beef. It was an orchestrated reminder that, in the real world, disrespect had consequences. Words on screens translated into actions in shadows. People closest to you could wound most effectively. Bold claims had given way to trembling whispers. King Harris faced the limits of fame, the fragility of trust, and the cost of ignoring warnings. The bullet on the table, the note under the dresser, the photo on his phone. They were not mere threats. They were evidence that some circles of influence were vulnerabilities waiting to be exploited. Arya's social accounts went private within hours of the clip's release. Her last public post, a sunset photo captioned "Grateful for Real Ones," was from 2 weeks before the initial break-in. No likes from King, no tags, no interactions. Radio silence. The absence only fueled suspicion. Fans and digital sleuths dug into her history. Old high school friends posting cryptic hints about her, always knowing too much and playing both sides. An anonymous burner account claimed she harbored resentment after King allegedly brushed off a flirtation gone wrong. "She caught feelings," the post read. "He played her, then acted like it never happened. She never forgot." Whether true or not, the narrative fit the emerging pattern. Personal wounds hidden beneath loyalty until the opportunity for revenge appeared. If Milo had acted out of heartbreak and humiliation, why couldn't Arya have been similarly motivated? The symmetry was poetic, terrifying, and horrifyingly plausible. Meanwhile, T.I. remained publicly restrained but privately ruthless. Insiders leaked that he had hired a private investigations firm, not one to post tabloid exposes, but an operation that functioned entirely in shadows. Every device, every login, every key fob, every Bluetooth connection associated with King's properties was scrutinized. Burner phones were traced, timestamps cross-referenced, financial trails mapped. T.I. was not waiting for round 2 to land on his son's doorstep. He was hunting the architect. King himself withdrew further from public life. Instagram stories became sporadic, grainy gym footage, low-lit studio sessions, captions reduced to black hearts, praying hands, and watchful eyes. No explanations, no clapbacks, no bravado. The young man who once declared, "I don't fear nobody," now moved like someone intimately familiar with fear, a predator aware that predators often wore familiar faces. Then came the next leak, not audio but documents, screenshots of encrypted messages allegedly from one of the intruders. Sparse, devastating. Package delivered, kid shook, left the souvenir on the table like we said. Good, keep eyes on him. Milo says he's still talking reckless. Milo's out, got twitchy, handle it quiet. Already moving, third party still inside, says the next window opens soon, same door, same time pattern. Third party, not the cousin, not Switch, not Milo, someone else. Someone who had survived the first purge and remained embedded, monitoring King's routines, waiting for a lapse in his guard. Fans, detectives, and armchair sleuths went into overdrive. Flight records cross-referenced with geotags from old posts. Spotify playlists scrutinized. Every minor figure in King's life, past and present, examined for motive, proximity, and opportunity. Names surfaced. A sound engineer dismissed after a disagreement, a former assistant who left on bad terms, a childhood friend recently reappearing after years away. Each person carried potential for betrayal. Each person was a candidate for the unknown third party. The most unsettling development came in a separate video, short, shaky, shot from a distance with a telephoto lens. A car parked across the street from King's temporary residence, timestamped the night after Milo's warning clip. The driver wore a familiar hoodie, the same one from the original door unlock footage. The camera zoomed, capturing a partial profile. Not the cousin, not Switch, not Milo. It was a woman, hair pulled back, face obscured by shadow and a surgical mask. Posture, head tilt, and silent observation made her unmistakable to anyone familiar with King's periphery, Arya. The clip ended with her starting the engine, pulling away with headlights off until reaching the corner. No caption, no explanation. The evidence spoke for itself. The internet didn't just react, it convulsed. Hashtags trended globally within minutes. Arya exposed, third party, #King Hunt, round 2. Analysts dissected the clip frame by frame. Conspiracy boards created maps linking her movements to known affiliate locations. Some fans begged King to vanish off-grid. Others demanded T.I. release whatever intelligence he held. A few began crowdfunding private security, convinced law enforcement wasn't moving quickly enough. Through it all, the core truth remained immutable. The danger wasn't external anymore. It lived inside the circle. It wore familiar faces, spoke in trusted voices, leveraged shared history. Every laugh, late-night conversation, and shared meal could have been reconnaissance. King Harris, once the embodiment of reckless confidence, now lived under siege in his own life. The bullet on the table had been a punctuation mark. Milo's warning had been an ellipsis. The leaked footage of Arya was the opening sentence of the next chapter. And somewhere in the quiet hours before dawn, someone was still watching, still planning, still waiting for the precise moment when complacency returned. Because round two wasn't coming. It had already arrived, silent, patient, and wearing a face King still greeted by name. The only question left: how many more faces would he have to learn to fear before the war ended, or before it claimed him entirely? Fans continued to theorize who truly was the third party. Was Arya the missing link, the person feeding information, the silent manipulator? Or was someone even closer, someone still sitting across the table, sharing meals, pretending friendship? Was King safe tonight? Or was the next strike already in motion, invisible, inevitable? The truth didn't arrive in statements or confessions. It leaked, one terrifying fragment at a time. Grainy frames, half-spoken warnings, cryptic notes, they were all pieces of a puzzle that no one outside the circle could fully solve. And as the days passed, the noose pulled ever tighter. King's world had transformed. Safety was a memory, trust a weapon, fame a liability. Each step, each conversation, each heartbeat was now measured against the fear that someone inside, someone he welcomed, could turn the intimate details of his life into leverage. And as the sun dipped beyond Atlanta's skyline, fans and digital detectives alike waited, collectively holding their breath. Every notification could carry a clue. Every forgotten post could signal the next movement. Every familiar voice might conceal the knife. Round two wasn't just coming. It was here. Patient, silent, intimate, and merciless. And the only certainty was that the danger would continue until King learned, one way or another, that in a world of loyal faces hiding dark motives, trust was the deadliest gamble of all. The quiet moments were the worst. King could be in a room alone and feel the weight of unseen eyes pressing in, each shadow a potential threat. He moved cautiously, testing the locks multiple times, double-checking every security measure, even though the cameras, alarms, and biometric systems had already been upgraded by TI's team. But technology couldn't shield him from intuition or the betrayal of intimacy. Every familiar laugh, every inside joke, every touch now carried suspicion. Trust had been weaponized, and the lesson had been seared into his consciousness by Milo's orchestrat. Ian and Arya's silent, lurking presence. The house no longer felt like home. It was a chessboard, each hallway and doorframe a strategic square. King's bed, once a place of comfort, now seemed like a stage for surveillance, his closet a potential hiding place for someone lying in wait. Even the walls seemed to breathe with the weight of proximity. Milo had shown him that betrayal wasn't always loud. It could be quiet, procedural, methodical, and it could hurt more when it came from those who claimed loyalty. TI had taken over the logistics entirely. The household ran on a tight, invisible grid. Entrance scans, timed lighting sequences, decoy phone signals, randomized patrols. Security cameras were upgraded to recognize not only faces but body heat patterns, movement velocities, and even micro-expressions. Any anomaly triggered alerts directly to TI's private device, bypassing the standard system. Yet despite all these precautions, King couldn't shake the unease. Protection could delay disaster, but it couldn't erase the memory of being betrayed by those he trusted most. Social media had become a minefield. Every post, every story, every tag could betray a location. Fans and digital sleuths had become an army of unpaid analysts, dissecting every frame for clues about King's routines, his companions, and his vulnerabilities. Once innocuous posts now carried massive risk. A Jim story from 3 days ago showing a towel draped over a bench became a potential map for someone stalking him. A photo with the wrong angle of his driveway, a glimpse of a license plate, or even a reflection in a mirror, anything could be exploited. The internet's collective gaze was relentless, and in King's world, that gaze had turned both protective and predatory. Arya remained a ghost in the feeds. Her sudden disappearance, her private accounts, her absence from tagged stories, all became evidence in the minds of the digital detectives. Her motives were unclear, yet every subtle detail painted her as a potential operative in the continuing siege against King. Who else knew the home as intimately? Who else had access to the personal spaces no one else could enter? The unanswered question hung over every interaction like a shadow. And then new footage surfaced. Not from cameras inside the house, not from the street, but from an adjacent apartment building. A neighbor had recorded a long lens clip showing Arya moving methodically around the perimeter of the house at dawn, timing her movements as if testing patrols, noting blind spots, analyzing angles of approach. She wasn't wearing gloves or disguises. She didn't need them. Familiarity was her shield. Every casual passerby would see her as just another face in the building. But those who had followed her patterns understood. She was orchestrating, observing, probing. Fans analyzed the footage in real time, pausing, slowing, enhancing. Frames were cross-referenced with previous leaks. Arya's movements lined up perfectly with the time the intruders had broken in weeks earlier. Patterns emerged. A window left open, a blind spot in the security rotation, a brief lapse in motion sensors. The digital map of betrayal began to take shape, and it left a cold impression. King was not just being watched. He was being mapped, studied, and cornered by someone he had welcomed into his life. Inside the house, the atmosphere had changed. King's room, once a sanctuary, now carried the tension of a surveillance bunker. Laptops ran continuous network scans. Phone signals were checked for spoofing. Wi-Fi networks were segmented, firewalls constantly updated. Any anomaly triggered an immediate alert. Even the simple act of opening a door or sliding a drawer was accompanied by the mental calculation. Who might be watching? Who could exploit this? King's mental state began to fracture. Sleep became a rarity. Dreams were filled with shadows, faces he knew turned into predators. Hallways stretched longer in his imagination, corners deepened, and familiar voices carried double meanings. Every laugh, every joke, every expression was interrogated for intent. Trust had become a liability, and every human interaction now carried risk. Meanwhile, Arya's movements outside the digital sphere remained unpredictable. Reports suggested she had been spotted entering and exiting nearby buildings, sometimes in broad daylight, sometimes under the cover of night. Each appearance coincided with minor disruptions in security. A delayed alarm, a glitch in a camera feed, a misaligned sensor. It was as if she was testing the boundaries, observing the response times, mapping weaknesses, and leaving no trace of her intention. The network of intrigue expanded. Even minor acquaintances, delivery personnel, rideshare drivers, and casual contractors became points of interest. Each person's schedule, device usage, and proximity were tracked. Fans and independent investigators pieced together timelines, geolocations, and interactions, aiding sprawling digital dossiers. Yet despite the analysis, uncertainty remained. Who was the third party? Arya, another friend, someone else entirely? The uncertainty amplified fear because it suggested that King could never truly know who to trust again. King's public persona had evolved. Once a symbol of bravado and fearlessness, he now projected caution, mystery, and controlled exposure. Posts were sporadic, intentionally vague, carefully curated. When he did share, it was minimal. A black and white studio clip, a close-up of a hand tapping a drum, a silhouette framed against a sunset. Each post became a coded signal, a test, or a message to those tracking him. Then came a final, chilling development. A new video appeared, uploaded anonymously, showing a figure at the edge of a rooftop across from King's safe house. The figure, partially illuminated by streetlights, observed the property for several minutes, then retreated without detection. Observers immediately noted the posture, the gait, and the cadence of movement. It matched Arya perfectly. The implication was clear. The observer wasn't just watching, she was testing, measuring, waiting, preparing. In that moment, the narrative crystallized. King's circle had been weaponized. Trust, proximity, and intimacy were tools of control. Arya's presence, once benign, now represented a constant, calculated threat. Milo's warning was no longer a single act. It was the prelude to an ongoing campaign of psychological domination. King's next steps would have to be decisive. Every ally, every friend, every peripheral figure was now suspect. The war was no longer about fame, clout, or social media rivalry. It was about survival. The rules had shifted, and the next move, whenever it came, would be precise, calculated, and unavoidable. Fans, meanwhile, continued to speculate, theorize, and obsess. Every post, every new leak, every small development became evidence, each fueling paranoia and fascination alike. The internet was both judge and jury, dissecting King's life frame by frame, thread by thread. The story had transcended gossip. It was now a cautionary tale about fame, trust, loyalty, and the hidden predators who wear familiar faces. King Harris, once untouchable in his orbit of privilege and fame, now lived in a world defined by uncertainty. Every shadow could conceal a threat. Every familiar face could carry betrayal. Every moment of perceived safety could be an illusion. Round 2 wasn't coming. It was already here, patient, precise, and intimate. And in this world, the only certainty was that the next strike would arrive from someone King still welcomed, someone he still trusted, someone who had mapped his life as meticulously as he once mapped his own moves in the public eye. The question remained, hauntingly, how many more faces would he have to learn to fear before the war ended? Or would the next chapter claim him entirely? The answers would not arrive neatly. They would leak slowly in fragmented warnings, digital breadcrumbs, and the silent gestures of someone still moving in the shadows of King's life. And somewhere, always somewhere, Arya, or someone else in her place, watched, waited, and planned. The game was no longer one of friendship, loyalty, or fame. It was survival, and the battlefield was King Harris's own life.